Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most unsettling truths hidden beneath the glitz and glamour of Hollywood's golden age, 10 legendary stars who openly admitted they regretted having children. Behind those picture-perfect family portraits and the glossy spreads in fan magazines, the reality was far darker than anyone imagined. While studios worked overtime to sell an image of devoted celebrity parents living storybook lives, private letters, diaries, and rare interviews tell a different story, one of heartbreak, regret, and emotional turmoil. These weren't just stars overwhelmed by the pressures of parenting. Some of the most adored figures in classic Hollywood faced deep, lasting remorse over becoming parents at all. Speaking out about such a taboo came at a heavy price. Careers were ruined, reputations shattered, and in many cases, their children carried the scars for life. So who were these iconic stars who dared to speak the unspeakable? And what do their raw, painful confessions reveal about the hidden cost of Hollywood's carefully manufactured image of family perfection? Let's uncover the truth behind the smiles and explore the stories of 10 Golden Age performers whose regret broke the illusion forever. Joan Crawford, the Hollywood icon whose legacy of glamour masked a haunting truth. She was a mother by image, not by instinct. When Christina Crawford published Mommy Dearest in 1978, it shattered the illusion of Joan as the perfect movie star mother. The book's allegations of physical and emotional abuse turned Crawford into the poster child for parental dysfunction in Hollywood. Though Christina's siblings later disputed parts of her account, the deeper tragedy may lie in what was uncovered years later, Crawford's own private admissions that she was never meant to be a mother. In a 1945 letter to her friend Marlene Dietrich, revealed decades later, Joan confessed, "The children were a mistake. I should never have been a mother. I'm just not equipped for the role. My ambitions leave no room for them. Yet here they are, and I cannot send them back." Her 4 adoptions came at a time when her star was fading and studios were desperate to reshape her public image. MGM insiders later revealed that Christina's adoption was orchestrated to coincide with the release of Susan and God, where Joan played a neglectful mother turned virtuous. Adopting a child wasn't about family, it was about publicity. Crawford's daughter became a living prop in a carefully staged redemption arc. In her personal diaries, partially published in 2021, Crawford wrote, "I try to love them as a mother should, but I feel like an actress playing a part. When the cameras aren't watching, I don't know how to do this. I'm not the person they need me to be." It's a confession both heartbreaking and brutally honest. Crawford knew she wasn't capable of giving her children the love they deserved. Instead, her internal conflict spilled out as emotional distance, rigid control, and at times, cruelty. Whether Mommy Dearest exaggerated or not, it captured a child's truth, the pain of being raised by someone who viewed motherhood not as a blessing, but as a burden. In one of her final interviews, Crawford offered a chilling reflection. "If I had it to do over again, I would have pursued my career and never tried to create the illusion of a happy family. The children deserved better than an ambitious woman playing mother when the spotlight demanded it." And with that, the carefully crafted mask of Hollywood's Mother of the Year shattered, revealing not a monster, but a woman broken by the roles she couldn't escape, and the children left to bear the cost. Spencer Tracy, the Catholic father's secret shame. To the world, Spencer Tracy was the picture of a devoted husband and father, a Hollywood legend with a golden career and a strong moral compass. But behind closed doors, he carried a sorrow so heavy, it haunted him until his final days. That sorrow had a name: John Tracy, his only son, born deaf and developmentally disabled. John's diagnosis at just 10 months old shattered Spencer's world. A devout Catholic, Tracy saw it not as a medical condition, but as divine retribution for his own sins, particularly his decades-long affair with Katharine Hepburn. In private journals, only made public after his death in 2006, Tracy wrote with heartbreaking guilt, "This is my punishment. God marked my boy because of me. Had I been a better man, John would have been whole. Sometimes, I look at him and wish he'd never been born, for his sake and for mine." And then, consumed with shame for even having the thought, he'd write, "That too is a sin I must carry." His regret twisted into a cycle of guilt, avoidance, and contradiction. Tracy helped establish the John Tracy Clinic in Los Angeles, now a world-renowned center for deaf children and their families. Yet at home, he remained a ghost in John's life. He buried himself in work, using his demanding film schedule to escape the agony of his perceived failure. His wife Louise, by contrast, became John's sole caretaker, emotionally and physically raising their son alone while Tracy disappeared into his career and into Hepburn's arms. In a heartbreaking letter to director George Cukor, Louise confessed, "Spencer cannot face John. He funds everything, but emotionally he's absent. To him, our son is a reminder of everything he's done wrong. That shame has poisoned any fatherly love that might have grown." But perhaps the most piercing revelation came from his daughter, Susie Tracy. In a rare 2007 interview, she recalled a drunken confession from her father. "He told me he never should have had kids. Said he didn't have the tools for fatherhood and that we deserved better. He made me swear never to tell Mom. It wasn't that he didn't love us. He just truly believed we would have been better off with a different father." And so, the tragic irony of Spencer Tracy's fatherhood wasn't that he didn't care. It was that he cared so much he couldn't bear to face it. In the end, it wasn't his presence but his absence that left the deepest scars. Judy Garland, the stage mother's daughter who became a mother full of regret. Judy Garland's journey through motherhood was haunted by the same pain that defined her own childhood. Raised under the iron grip of her mother, Ethel Gum, one of Hollywood's most infamous stage mothers, Judy was thrust into stardom before she could form her own identity. That legacy of pressure and emotional neglect would cast a long, tragic shadow over Garland's own role as a mother. She had 3 children, Liza Minnelli with director Vincente Minnelli, and Lorna and Joey Luft with producer Sid Luft. But her relationships with them were anything but easy. Addiction, mental illness, and constant financial chaos fractured their family life. The deepest wounds remained hidden until her daughter Lorna published her memoir Me and My Shadows, revealing the raw heartbreak behind Garland's public image. In a devastating moment during a financial spiral, Garland confessed to Lorna, "You children were supposed to be my greatest productions, but I failed at motherhood just like I failed at everything else. If I could go back, I wouldn't have had children. It wasn't fair to you, to be born to someone as broken as me." That haunting admission came during one of Judy's many self-harm episodes, scenes her children, heartbreakingly, grew used to witnessing. What made her story even more tragic was the cycle she couldn't escape. As a young teen, MGM executives fed her pills to stay thin, kept her working through exhaustion, and saw her more as a commodity than a person. That same pattern would surface in her parenting. She kept her children up all night during manic highs, brought them on stage before they were ready, and leaned on them emotionally in ways no child should ever endure. Liza Minnelli once said she became her mother's caretaker at just 11 years old, paying bills, managing medications, and keeping Garland afloat. "I never got to be a child," Liza told The Guardian in 2008. She once told me, "I love you desperately, but I never wanted to be a mother. I was forced into it, by the studio and by the public. You deserved someone stronger than me." Still, even in the chaos, there was love. Deep, messy, painful love. Her son Joey Luft later reflected, "She loved us fiercely, even when she couldn't take care of us. Her regret wasn't about having us, it was about not being the mother she hoped we'd have." Judy Garland's story wasn't just one of fame and failure, it was the heartbreaking portrait of a woman who, despite being adored by millions, couldn't escape the damage done to her, nor prevent passing it on. Jean Tierney, the Hollywood beauty broken by motherhood. Jean Tierney was one of the most breathtaking stars of the 1940s, an icon of elegance in films like Laura, 1944, and Leave Her to Heaven, 1945. But behind that flawless face lay a haunting tragedy that shattered her life and reshaped her identity as a mother. In 1943, while volunteering at the Hollywood Canteen, Tierney contracted rubella from a fan who had broken quarantine to meet her. She was pregnant at the time. The virus left her newborn daughter, Daria, deaf, partially blind, and severely mentally disabled. Doctors told Jean her daughter would never recognize her as her mother. That moment marked the beginning of a slow emotional collapse. In her 1979 memoir Self-Portrait, Tierney wrote with heartbreaking honesty about her second daughter, Christina. After Daria's condition became clear, I wanted a healthy child so badly. When Christina was born perfectly fine, I couldn't fully love her. My grief had hollowed me out. I saw her not as a miracle, but a replacement. She deserved a mother, not a shadow. Tierney's mental health spiraled. By 1953, she was institutionalized and endured 26 electroshock treatments, which impaired her memory and cognition. Her daughters were raised mostly by her ex-husband, designer Oleg Cassini. The tragedy wasn't in Tierney's lack of love, it was in the cruel timing and the irreversible damage of grief. As she later wrote, "Motherhood became my greatest heartbreak. If I'd understood my own trauma, I wouldn't have brought another child into it." In a rare interview, Christina Cassini confirmed the painful truth. "My mother told me she shouldn't have had me. She thought it was selfish, an attempt to fix herself that only created more wounds. It hurt deeply, but over time I understood she was trying to spare others from the same mistake." Jean Tierney's story isn't just one of glamour or fame, it's a haunting portrait of how even the deepest love can be buried under the weight of tragedy. Bing Crosby, the absent father who admitted the damage too late. Bing Crosby was once seen as the picture-perfect American dad, the relaxed, pipe-smoking icon of fatherhood. But behind the scenes, the reality was far darker. That polished image crumbled after his eldest son, Gary, released Going My Own Way in 1983, exposing years of physical abuse and emotional neglect. What shocked the world even more were the private letters later uncovered, revealing that Crosby had already confessed his deep regret long before the public ever knew. Crosby had 7 children, 4 sons with his first wife, Dixie Lee, Gary, twins Philip and Dennis and Lindsay, and 3 more with his second wife, Catherine Grant. His starkly different parenting styles between the two families spoke volumes. In a 1958 letter to close friend Bob Hope, discovered in 2014, Crosby wrote, "I've failed those boys so completely, I sometimes think they'd have been better off without a father at all. I had no business having children. I lacked the patience, the wisdom, the generosity fatherhood demands. My second family is getting a better man, but that's cold comfort to the 4 boys who bore the brunt of my inadequacies." Crosby's parenting, especially with his first family, reflected a broader, now outdated, cultural model of fatherhood. In the 1940s and early 50s, strict discipline, emotional distance, and even physical punishment were not only accepted but expected. By the time he remarried in 1957, society had begun shifting toward a more nurturing view of fatherhood, a shift Crosby himself came to recognize. In a forgotten 1972 interview with Barbara Walters, he admitted, "I should never have had kids when I did. I was too young, too selfish, and too clueless about what children actually need. I thought money was enough. I know now how wrong I was. My first 4 sons paid the price for my ignorance." The tragedy didn't end with remorse. 2 of his sons, Lindsay and Dennis, died by suicide after long battles with depression and substance abuse, struggles the family linked directly to their troubled upbringing. In 2010, Philip, the surviving son from that marriage, told the Daily Mail, "Dad admitted to each of us that he had failed. He said he was the wrong kind of father and that the damage was permanent. The apology came too late for 2 of my brothers." As we delve deeper into the painful confessions of celebrity parents, a disturbing pattern emerges. The spotlight of fame often cast long shadows at home. These honest, haunting reflections expose not only personal failures, but a much larger problem. A culture that made room for stardom, but not for fatherhood. Joan Bennett, the Hollywood star who regretted becoming a mother. Joan Bennett's elegance lit up Hollywood screens from the silent era through the 1970s. She evolved from ingenue roles to sultry femme fatale and melodramatic matriarchs. But behind the glamour was a startling truth. Bennett once admitted that if she could go back, she wouldn't have had children. At a time when women were expected to find purpose in motherhood, her confession was radical. She had 4 daughters, 2 from early marriages and 2 with producer Walter Wanger. Publicly, she was the picture of maternal devotion. Privately, her letters told a different story. In one to her sister Constance in 1947, she wrote, "I love my girls, but I must confess something I can barely admit to myself. If I could go back, I wouldn't have had children. I feel like I've failed at both motherhood and my career. My daughters deserve a mother who's present, not one who's watching the clock, longing to return to her real passion." Unlike others who hid or acted on their frustrations, Bennett tried to manage hers with grace. She hired excellent caregivers and kept her daughters away from Hollywood's glare, fearing they'd become rivals for attention she already struggled to give. Her daughter Stephanie later confirmed it in a 1988 memoir. "Mother once told me she never really wanted children. She only had us because it was expected of women in her time, especially in Hollywood where the image of family sold tickets. She wasn't cruel. She was honest." In a 1975 interview, Bennett summed it up painfully. "Women of my generation weren't asked if we wanted children, it was assumed. I never had the words to question it until it was too late. My regret isn't my daughters. They're wonderful. My regret is never having the chance to ask myself what I truly wanted." Joan Bennett's story isn't just about one woman's regret, it's about the silent cost of expectations and the price so many women paid for roles they never chose. Clark Gable, the Hollywood king who never wanted to be a father. Clark Gable was the epitome of masculinity on the silver screen, Hollywood royalty whose charm captivated millions. But behind the leading man image was a man deeply resistant to fatherhood. Despite multiple marriages, Gable consistently chose freedom and career over family, a decision he later defended as the right one, even as societal norms said otherwise. His complicated path to fatherhood began in 1935 during the filming of The Call of the Wild, when he secretly fathered a child with actress Loretta Young. Young concealed the pregnancy, gave birth in secret, and later adopted her own biological daughter, Judy Lewis, to avoid scandal. Gable never publicly acknowledged Judy, though he quietly supported her through intermediaries. What set Gable apart wasn't just his actions, it was his honesty. In an era when wanting children was seen as a virtue, especially for successful men, Gable admitted he wasn't cut out for fatherhood. According to his longtime friend and co-star, he often said, "Bringing a child into my life would be unfair to them. My career always came first." When his fifth wife, Kay Williams Gable, became pregnant in 1960, Gable, then 59, reacted with dread, not joy. Director Raoul Walsh later recalled Gable saying, "At my age, with my lifestyle, I shouldn't be starting a family. I'll only resent the restrictions. It would have been better if this hadn't happened." Gable died of a heart attack before his son, John Clark Gable, was born in March 1961. In later interviews, Kay revealed her husband's honesty about not wanting children. "Clark told me straight out, he avoided fatherhood because he knew he'd be an absent, inadequate father." John Clark Gable confirmed that story in a 2001 interview. "My mom never sugarcoated it. She said Dad had doubts about becoming a father late in life. She felt I deserved the truth, not a fairy tale." Loretta Young, the Hollywood star forced to adopt her own child. Loretta Young's story is one of the most heartbreaking and bizarre chapters in Hollywood history. After a secret affair with Clark Gable during the filming of The Call of the Wild in 1935, the devout Catholic actress became pregnant, an unwed mother in an era when that could end a woman's career. Abortion was never an option for Young, so she vanished from the public eye, gave birth in secret, placed the baby in an orphanage, and later adopted her own biological daughter, Judy Lewis. For decades, Young maintained the lie, forced to mother from behind a mask to protect her image. The cost? A lifetime of emotional distance. In a taped interview released after her death, Young confessed, "I regret that I couldn't be an honest mother to my own child. Our relationship was built on a lie that poisoned everything." Judy Lewis didn't learn the truth until she was 31. The revelation was devastating, requiring years of therapy. In her memoir Uncommon Knowledge, Judy recalled sensing something was always off, never understanding the emotional gap between her and the woman she thought had simply adopted her. In one of her final interviews, Young reflected, "If I could do it over, I would have taken Judy and gone to Europe, where we could live openly as mother and daughter." I wish I'd had the courage to choose truth over image. Young's sorrow wasn't about having a child, it was about the impossible choice Hollywood forced her to make. While Clark Gable faced no consequences, she carried the full weight of shame, secrecy, and sacrifice. Her story exposes the cruel double standard that punished women for motherhood and demanded silence in exchange for survival. Bette Davis, the star who chose the spotlight over motherhood. Bette Davis was a Hollywood powerhouse, 10 Oscar nominations, 2 wins, and a legendary career fueled by relentless ambition. But behind the curtain of fame was a woman who openly struggled with motherhood. Her daughter B.D., from her marriage to William Grant Sherry, later published a damning memoir, My Mother's Keeper, painting Davis as an alcoholic and emotionally distant parent who always put her career first. Davis denied many claims, but private letters and later admissions revealed a deeper truth. In a 1952 letter to rival Joan Crawford, Davis confessed, "I lack whatever mysterious quality makes a good mother. My ambition leaves room for little else. Perhaps it would have been better had I remained childless." She had 3 children, B.D., an adopted daughter Margot, born with brain damage and institutionalized for most of her life, and adopted son Michael with Gary Merrill. Their experiences with her were drastically different. While B.D. claimed emotional abuse, Michael defended Davis as flawed but loving. Margot, though financially supported, rarely saw her mother, a fact Davis later called her greatest failing. In her 1987 memoir This and That, Davis admitted, "I was not a good mother in many ways. My career always came first. A child knows when they're not the priority." Speaking to Barbara Walters that same year, she summed up the heartbreaking dilemma of her generation. "We were told we could be mothers or professionals, not both. I tried to be both without knowing how. My children paid the price." Lana Turner, the glamour queen whose daughter killed her lover. No Hollywood mother-daughter story ends more shockingly than Lana Turner's. In 1958, her 14-year-old daughter Cheryl Crane fatally stabbed Turner's abusive mobster boyfriend, Johnny Stompanato, during a violent fight. The act was ruled justifiable homicide, but the damage was done. Cheryl was thrown into juvenile detention, and Turner's parenting was torn apart in the public eye. At the height of her fame, Turner juggled a chaotic love life, 8 marriages, and a grueling film schedule. Cheryl, born from Turner's second marriage, was raised more by nannies and Turner's mother than by Lana herself. The emotional gap between them widened into a painful chasm after the stabbing. Years later, Turner admitted what many had suspected. In her 1982 memoir, she wrote with raw honesty, "Had I been a more present mother, perhaps none of it would have happened. I should never have had a child while living the life I chose." Cheryl's own memoir, Detour, confirmed this pain. She recalled her mother once saying, "Darling, I was never meant to be a mother. The studio wanted me to have a baby to soften my image. But they didn't have to raise you. I didn't know how." Both paid the price for that publicity stunt. Yet the tragedy didn't end in bitterness. In later years, Cheryl returned to care for her ailing mother. Before Turner's death from cancer in 1995, she said, "My greatest regret was becoming a mother unprepared. My greatest blessing was Cheryl's forgiveness." What most people don't realize is this: these regrets weren't just personal, they were the byproduct of a ruthless studio system that saw stars as marketable images, not human beings. So when even Hollywood icons say they regret having children, it isn't about blaming the child. It's about the crushing weight of fame, pressure, and a life built around illusion. Behind the glittering spotlight, some stars carried regrets too deep to share, until it was almost too late. If this story moved you, tell us in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful truths from the hidden side of Hollywood.